The character of Oedipus the king is a man who bears a long-standing doubt as to who his parents are, a doubt which is older than the events of the play and has been a latent source of worry for him. It has been a faltering mantra in the maintenance of his self-assurance that his father was Polybus, his mother Merope, and so he could think that he had successfully eluded the prophecy that he would kill his father and marry his mother. But his uncertainty is shown in his pitiful reply to Tiresias when the prophet says to him at line 497 of the Fagles translation, in a moment when Oedipus is raging against the man's words, telling him to vanish and condemning his absurdities. But Tiresias responds, "The ones who bore you found me sane enough." And Oedipus, ceasing his chastisement, replies, "Parents? Who? Wait, who is my father?" And if you read this exchange in context, there is an incredible contrast between Oedipus, the presumptuous accuser, and Oedipus, the pitiable wanderer in search of his identity. And such a source of weakness is his uneasy belief in the truth of his birth that he is willing to break character as a harsh inquisitor in order to pick up the trail of his lineage. And in this video, we are going to focus on his obsession with learning about his family stock. And so let us examine the words of Oedipus when he tells the history of his flight from Corinth.
My father was Polybus of Corinth, and my mother the Dorian Merope. And I was held the foremost man of all that town until a thing happened. A thing to startle a man, but not to make him angry as it made me. We were sitting at the table when a man who had drunk too much cried out that I was not my father's son, and I, though angry, restrained my anger for that day. But the next day went to my father and my mother and questioned them. They were indignant, and that comforted me. But the man's words rankled, for they had spread a rumor through the town. Without consulting my father or my mother, I went to Delphi. But Apollo told me nothing of the things for which I came, but much of other things, things of sorrow and of terror, that I should live in incest with my mother and beget a brood that men would shudder to look upon, that I should be my father's murderer.
Some interesting lines from that monologue, as they appear in the Fagles, are at line 869. When he went to the oracle at Delphi, he tells us, "The god Apollo spurned me, sent me away, denied the facts I came for." Which is to say that the god did not look kindly on this genealogical inquiry, that he should have had other things on his mind. And once that messenger comes from Corinth, he delivers two pieces of information to Oedipus. The first is that Polybus has died, and the second that Polybus was not his father. And from this point forward, Oedipus makes the discovery of his parentage his foremost concern. He balks at Jocasta's plea that he end this investigation at line 1160. What? Give up now with a clue like this? Fail to solve the mystery of my birth? Not for all the world, he says. And when the chorus leader warns, "I'm afraid something monstrous may come bursting forth," Oedipus replies at line 1183, "Let it burst. Whatever will, whatever must, I must know my birth, no matter how common it may be. I must see my origins face to face." Now, how seriously he suspects that his birth is common is its own debate, but there is little doubt that he is hell-bent on learning about his ancestry, and in this respect, the play bears a similarity with the myth of Phaethon, as told in Ovid's Metamorphoses. Now, Phaethon was the son of Apollo, and like Oedipus, he was made to doubt his parentage. Ovid writes, "Phaethon, child of the sun, whose arrogance one day and boasts of his high parentage were more than Epiphus could bear. You fool," he said, "to credit all your mother says, that birth you boast about is false." And Phaethon asks his mother, just as Oedipus had, and her assurance was not enough for him. So he sought out Apollo himself, and the god says, "To dispel all doubt Ask what you will, that I may satisfy your heart's desire." And Ovid continues, "The boy declared his wish, his father's chariot for one day, with license to control the soaring steeds. And Apollo warns him that he will not be able to control the sun chariot. He tells him, 'Mortal your lot, not mortal your desire,' and he begs him to choose a different gift. But Phaethon will not change his mind, so much does he wish to be his father's son. But Phaethon is unfit for the task, as Ovid says. The horses disdained such a light driver, accustomed to the weight of a god, and he realizes too late the peril he is in. Ovid writes, "His face grew pale, his knees in sudden fear shook, and his eyes were blind with light so bright, would he had never touched his father's steeds, nor learnt his birth, nor won his heart's desire." And eventually Zeus would strike him dead with a thunderbolt. So both the stories of Oedipus and Phaethon caution against this obsession over parentage, and I interpret this fixation as a sign that these characters suspect that they are less remarkable than their fathers, and their egos crave a resolution of this deficiency. Let us look at these lines from Oedipus when the messenger tells him he is no son of Polybus. At line 1121, Oedipus responds, "Then how could he love me so? He loved me deeply." This Oedipus cannot comprehend love without blood. The adoptive act of Polybus is beyond his quality and out of reach of his attainment for lack of inherent virtue. We are free to imagine that the young Oedipus, born with a vicious temperament, must have sensed the contrast between his own nature and that of Polybus, and considered that he was an unworthy heir. And it could further be interpreted that Oedipus never really feared that he would murder his father because of any virtuous impulse or because of genuine filial love, but because he fears the shame of committing the act held to be the greatest disgrace according to Greek custom. He says it when he considers the possibility that he is the murderer. Oedipus says, "I am the man no alien, no citizen welcomes to his house, law forbids it, not a word to me in public, driven out of every hearth and home." A worse reflection still is when Jocasta says to him at line 1082, "Your father's death, that, at least, is a great blessing, joy to the eyes." Oedipus says, "Great, I know." And so we might say that Oedipus is a villain who is justly doomed, and his obsession with his ancestry is linked with his doom. In these lines from Tiresias at line 499, "This day will bring your birth and your destruction."